All right, in this video, fellas, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I did to make a tool, okay, for a throttle cable. Right, these are the barrel ends that fit into these throttle cables. And now this cable's in good shape. This cable's new. All right, but my problem is, and we'll get closer look in a bit, but my problem is I need a custom length cable. So in this video, I'm going to show you what I did. I had to make a tool. I bought a different sheath, a replacement sheath, but the cable itself was too short. So I need to make up something custom. And I figured I'll replace the grips and do all of that. And if your sheath is in good shape, and I was hoping to get this cable out, and I do this a lot, I could not get it out. It was locked in there. And of course the inside of the sheath is probably rusted. So if you're in that situation like me, or however you've come to it, you need to make a tool. Let me show you what I did, and I actually spent a little bit more time trying to perfect it, and I even have some more ideas. But I saw this a while back, and it's been sitting in my crawl forever, and I knew sooner or later I was going to come to this point. Stay tuned. Let's get to it. I do a lot of custom stuff and fix, repair, small equipment. And this one is for Mike's mini bike. So this is a mini bike application, but it really doesn't matter what application is. I know sooner or later you've got this problem. And these barrel splices are real nice. So this is just a piece I cut off. And you can see how nice it fits. And I'll show you some footage. So I got this thing over here already all set up. And we'll get into that in a bit. I'll show you a little bit more about it. And so this is the new one. And so what we want to make is this, right? We want to make this. And because that's the part, I need it. And on this cable here was brand new, came out of the sheath that I'm working on, which you can see just out of the shot. I figured I'd buy it new, but it's just too short. I need more cable length, so I've got some nice stainless steel cable for this, and we got to solder something on, so I made up this tool. I'll just kind of give you a closer shot just for the intro. And this is what pushes it out. All right, and you can solder it, lock it in the vise, and I've come up with some ideas on how to improve it. I saw it a long time ago. Somebody did it on YouTube, and the video's a little dark, and he didn't show a lot of stuff. So let me show all of it here. I'm going to kind of go through the whole thing and see how I kind of developed it, what sizes I picked. Now, you can make different ones. Most of these barrels are the same size, but if you have a situation where maybe the barrel is a little bit different, a little bit bigger, you can adjust all of this to size. That's a piece of stainless, and this is just a drill bit. So we'll go through all of this right now. Stay tuned. I cut this end off. This is our barrel. It fits in here, right? And it's a pretty decent fit, like it's a tight fit. We want to keep that. We don't want it too sloppy. This is the original grip. So we got a new grip and system already on the machine. And this is what we're working with, right? The old stuff. We got a new handle too if we want. This is the new style that we're working with. His is all braided here. You can put that later. So here's the idea. And I've seen somebody do this, so I thought of the ones that I looked at, I thought maybe this is not a bad way. So we need to drill a hole and cut a slot. So 1/2 inch, 5/8 bolt. This is a stainless, so it's non-magnetic. And one of the reasons I chose is we have to see if it's soft enough to drill through, because we don't want to kill a drill bit. I don't want to, I don't want this to be any more painful than it has to be. And of course it's clean, okay? And it'll stay clean because it's stainless. So I got a drill bit of the same size, and most of this stuff is metric, but I'm not a metric-y guy. So this is 32,000. So I'm just measuring it up, and you need to do the same thing. So basically it fits. So that's our drill bit, okay? And I need a pilot drill bit, and we'll center punch that. We don't have to be perfect. And then we're going to cut a slot with a grinder or whatever, grinding wheel. We'll cut a slot so that the cable can lay in. And then we need another drill bit, or the same drill bit, but we want to be able to come through the whole thing. So this might be long enough to do it, but we need something to go all the way through, because you're going to want to, after you solder it, you're going to need to punch it out from the backside. So whatever the backside is. So we can mount this end in the vise. We'll drill from here. The slot will be here. We'll drop this in, our cable in, mesh up the end, heat it up good and hot, get the lead and the solder or whatever in there, let it cool, drive it out, and then we can finish the end and finish it to size. It's a fairly lightweight operation. Let's get started on that. Let me set you up. So that's just the idea to start off with. Let's make it. Put a black magic marker on it. Close enough. You got to kind of use a drill bit to get started. This one reaches, but I think we're going to need to change this one out and put a pilot bit in there and get going. That's better. All right. That's going to take my time. All right, we're locked in. Yeah, she's beautiful. Now let's see if it cuts it. Yeah, it's cutting it. That's stainless, so it's a little hard, but it's going quick. See, look, it's picking it up. Get away, you. Yeah, she's gonna go no problem, fellas. I just checked it and I moved it over a little bit, put some wood underneath. Yep, there we go. That's it. All right, let's get it out. So I ran this drill through first. This is the one that was under a quarter. So this is a 15, 16, 17, roughly. So it's not 0.25. I polished it up with the letter A, because otherwise, as you're drilling in material like this, it gets sloppy. So this is 0.023132, something like that. I know the glare. And I made this. All right, I just kind of turned that down real quick on the grinder and the drill. It wasn't quite centered, but it's centered enough up here. But look, you can see it got a little off, but that's not terrible. All right, we're making this by hand. Drove it in, I cut that slot, and I wanted about midway. I actually brought down a little bit more than factory. See, because we want to give it a little bit of extra, so we can adjust this by hand. And then we have this drift. I still got to polish out and clean it out a little bit more, but right now naturally that'll be a little bit more difficult. We'll do it on the vise, but just so you see. All right, so we're ready to go. I'm just going to make sure this is clean. I'll pull some burrs off of here, and we'll set it up on the vise and we clear all the flammels out of the way, and we'll do the cable. So I'll show you what the cable is next. All right, so this is the new throttle cable, but the cable is too short. So, and this is stainless steel wire, which is very nice, and it's big enough. It's the same size. I forget whether it's a 16th. I forget what these size is. You guys can look it up. So yeah, I just need some more. Like, I don't need a lot. I'm just going to give myself a whole bunch of extra. Put some flux on it. And if you can, maybe even if you can kind of bend the ends a little. And splay them out. You know, you don't have a lot of room to work. Yeah, that'll do it. Give it a bit of a twist. Just enough. I mean, don't get too crazy with it, because there's not a lot of room in there. Right, that's good. This is Stay Bright silver bearing solder, 1/8 diameter. And so it's got some silver in it. That's our backup. And this is Taramet. So whatever company. It is Tara Corp Industries. So it's 50/50. It's got tin and lead. And I think we're better off with this. Now, the first thing I did was, remember, this stuff for me is sitting around. So whenever I go to do something, I'm like, with this, you know, you have to consider, like when we do pipes and everything, we Scotch Brite the pipes, we clean it, but people forget to clean their solder. If it's not new and in the bag, like in the covering, right, it's been sitting out, it's contaminated. So I hit it with some Scotch Brite, and I'm just going to take some, I think brake cleaner is probably our best bet. And just give it a wipe. See all the crap? Let's see if you can see that. Just from the first wipe. That should be enough. Just get this junk off, because that's, I mean, yes, it can float to the surface and everything, but I find that a lot of your problems are actually going to come from just what you're doing. You know, it's contaminated by the world we're in. Your hands are greasy. This stuff has been sitting out forever. It's oxidizing. God knows how many years I've had this. So we got that. We did this end. Let's dump this in a little bit of no corrode flux. Just pick some up from a clean spot. And now we're prepared. Now let me set up for the torch. Now we should be ready to go. There it goes. It's going in. It might all drop out. I think we need something to hold that. There we go. Yeah, I think it might drop out a lot of it. Yeah, she's dropping out. All right, we got to solve the dropout problem. Now, I don't know, the guy that I saw do this, I'm thinking to myself, how does he stop it from dropping out? How would that even work? Because it's just going to fall right out, especially if you have it hot. So my thinking is that, well, we have to put some kind of a plug in. Yeah, she's definitely creating a bit of a block. There it goes. Yeah, there we go. So now what I'm seeing is, you know, you're creating carbon and junk around here. So that's actually it's going to cause it a problem. So we're going to need more flux. So that carbon is going to build up and cause a problem. So I don't know if this is even a good way to go about doing it, but I figured we would try it. Okay. See what's in there? I'm starting. So the question is, how do you affix this down here? Well, let me see what I can come up with. Let that cool down a bit. So I've reset this up, and so what you can't see is just like right out of the shot is a little rubber style like douche clamp just to hold the cable, you know, to the drill press table here. So I've got a little bit more acid on there, or flux, rather. Put it back in. And the plunger that I made is located just down far enough. I measured it with my vernier here. And it's set a little bit dark over here because we're going to be flaming again. So I just kind of measured it just to see how deep in the plunger is on this. You know, how far up the plunger is. So in this vise configuration, I've got the plunger laying on the bottom of this vise, and I just moved this bolt up and down and tightened it into the jaws. Now that plunger may be a little too long, but we're going to go with this. I'm not really sure how deep we want to make it. That plunger should theoretically hold the solder from blurbling down and out. All right, let's see what happens. Like, you know, I always wonder about this stuff. Like, you see this stuff on the internet, like people did this and they were successful. Yeah, were they? There we go. All right, just overfill it. I'll turn up the gain a little bit. So it's over full, just by a bit. Let that set. Let it cool, fellas. Let me shut the torch down. We'll be back in a minute. I'll get you in close. I waited for a little bit. I almost screwed it up. Yeah, it stays hot for a long time in molten. It's starting to tamp up now. Just check the top with a little screwdriver or something. So this is a little clamp here. You need something to kind of hold the cable in place. Let me give it a little bit more time because it's dry, you know, it's cool here and hard, but it may not be down in here. It's hot. This thing really holds heat. You would think it would wick it away, but it doesn't. I may have damaged it. I may have screwed it up because the cable got lifted and I had to shove things back down. But this is our first shot. Let me just give you a close-up. Just throw it in some cold water. All right, just tap it. Can't go any further. Let's take a peek at that. All right, we got to regrind this drift because it's got a taper on it. Hold on. See, look at the slug. Now, we could have done a better job. It needs to come up a little higher. So there should have been a bubble on it. But there's a slug here to work with. I'm going to call this the first failure and success. The drift has got the slug stuck to it. So I cut it off. I did pull on it. Remember now, I really curled everything over. So it came out okay. It's pretty strong. It didn't really fail, but I didn't like the carbon buildup. I got it very hot. I did accidentally touch it before it was ready. It was still molten. So I'm not really happy with that, but it is pretty strong. And I want to remake it. So I think that's what we're going to do is in this next segment, we're going to work to try to improve the joint, improve the quality of it, make sure the precision is there, and just tweak the tool a little bit, because I suspect this still is not really ready to work for us. So let's get to that segment. I'll try and shorten things up a little bit. This is really the first real test, but we've got more work to do. See? Just pulling on it again. I pulled on it a few times, and it seemed to be pretty strong. Now, here's the other problem I'm having. Because the drift is too small, and I, turned it by hand, it's taken forever to get it out. I finally have to heat it. So this is another failure. So we need the correct size drift, which is really either something exactly like the drill bit that we use to bore the final size, or we're going to need something that is similar to that, maybe a little bit smaller. And that's when I found an extra 7/16 drill bit, which we'll take a look at in a minute. See how it just peels right off? Right? It's just a little bit on the way because this isn't really tight. Because it's making a curve, so it's not going flat down. So I might want to drive a drift in there and knock that extra slag, I don't know what you would call it. It's a little bit of extra material that is getting in the way, and just take a screwdriver or something and knock it in there. So I'm just testing. Yeah, she's down far enough. She's down probably maybe even too far. 7/32 from an old box. It's been sharpened and it may even be hot on the end, gotten hot. It looks a bit beat. It feels a bit beat. Shank's not terrible, but I definitely have fooled around with it. And it fits in good. Now, I'm pretty sure I went at some point with the 15 64ths. So let's hold that to the side. That's from my good set. Let's just run this in real quick. There's some junk in there. Okay. All right, now. Quarter, it's too big. So that's why I was obsessing over this. We could just stay with this, notch it. Seems like it fits good. Or we can go with a little bit bigger, but if you go with the correct size, you're going to have a situation where you're not going to get a lot of lead nonsense behind it. It's not going to get as jammed. All right, I made a marker on this drill bit just to see. There's a mark here with the grinder. That way, I can shove it in from the bottom. and I can kind of align it. It doesn't have to be exact. So if you notice, if I take this guy, I fit this out to about 3/8 of an inch here. And then shove that in, grab this, do that, take a look, where's my mark? Perfect. Pretty close. So we're close, right? We're gonna adjust all of that later. Now, that gives me plenty of room to knock this way, to knock out the slug. There's plenty left over. Now our issue is we need to set this up so that when we go to, because there's all this extra down here, and even though we're real close, we've got to come out, you know, at least another 1/2 inch or so, right? So we have all this extra. We don't really necessarily need it. We go get the other vise and see how I want to set that up, see how it feels. So I just essentially, you know, chucked it up in the vise here, and that drill bit is now hitting the base over here. Okay, so it's hitting the base, and I lifted up the bolt and tightened it, and I can pretty much see in here that notch that we made, right? So I can pretty much see it. If anything, it's a little bit. This is a little high, so it'll make that lug a little bit deeper. That's okay. We don't care if it's a little bit too wide. We can trim it. What we want is to make sure that we get the first shot. We get the lug and everything relatively centered. We have enough material on the outsides of it to kind of grind or cut or file, so that we got a good center, and we've got the lug is really buried in the cable. And you want to create enough of a gap, I guess. I mean, you can't splay it out so much because this is a small style ferrule. So we're in there. Now, that's going to try to fall out. So it's just a rig to hold it up. Yeah, oh, that's good. Right in there. Oh, yeah. It's down into the bore, or the boss. We're down all the way here. I tweaked it. I tweaked the top. We tweaked that slot. We've got everything where we want it. Okay, let's go cook it. We want to make sure that cable gets hot too. It will. Bubble on the top, let it cook a little bit longer. See how it fell in a little? See how it's falling in? All right, we got a burble on the top. I see a little bit of a burble, like a little bubble, and then it kind of sucked down a little bit, it flattened out, but we got a lot of room to work with. Let's leave it. I'll see you guys in a bit. And it collapses because when it's hot, it'll expand, and then as it cools, it will shrink. And look, we're in there about midway, right? We're down, the cable is down in that slot we made. Careful, this thing will bite you. This vise will bite you, bite your hands. Everything is heavy and beefy. So we could leave the tip, or we could get rid of the tip. It doesn't really matter. There's not much to that tip. Oh, here it comes. There you go. Wow. Wow. Well, let's get the tool out. I mean, because you can use the bit to clean, chuck it back up. Okay. Pull out any junk out of it. I like that. All right, let's re-aim. Let's re-aim the camera. Hold on. All right, so here's our notch. Once again, let me find it. Here's the notch. Right there. And then it came up from the bottom and it laid on the table of the drill press, and it just kind of laid there. We put it together. And you guys are like, well, hold on, let me see. Look at the size of that lug. So that's almost perfect, fellas. Look at that lug. Now, let me just clean it up. Oh, that lug looks great. Now, let me just clean it up. Now, it will fit in like that, but remember now, we can't be that wide because the outer piece, let me get the older one. So it's got to fit in here. It's got to fit in here. So that's too wide. Okay. So we're going to take a little bit off of either end. And we've got a couple ways to do that. So this is in there nice. Probably use something a little bit bigger file or something. Oh, look at that. Remember, this is solder, so it's going to go. Oh, yeah. It's going to cut quick. And we probably could make it so that that notch just disappears inside. So that's something for the future. We can just make a mention of that. Oh, fellas, it's just cutting so fast it almost doesn't pay to use like a power tool or something. I mean, you go over to your belt sander and just real quick. I need some new belts. Yeah, this file's good. This is like a bastard. A little coarse. All right, here's a closer look at it. All right, after it's pretty much finished, and I want to show you what it looks like when it's actually fit into the throttle assembly. But what I want to describe here right now is that I pulled on a little bit more. I set it up into the throttle assembly. I connected it to the throttle system that I made, which we'll see later in the video, a little bit later. We're almost done. And twisted it a whole bunch of times, and it did fail. And I suspected it would at some point because this is a cold joint. What we really need to do is get a nice, good mechanical joint, a hot joint. And I'm going to show you what I want to do with a little bit of different procedure. What we need to do is find a way to tin this cable, which is stainless steel cable. And my concern originally was, well, stainless steel cable, should it be regular steel? Will it solder? Can we tin it? I didn't like that black soot that was on there. Here I'm just kind of fitting it and filing it a little bit more. It's got to fit properly within that case. But it's that cold joint that really had me concerned. Here's what I got laid out. So I cleaned the cable, cut the bad end off, and I cleaned it with brake cleaner. This is Stay Silv. It's high temp flux. And I have some in here. And it dries out, you just add a little water to it and wait. And we'll try it with it and we'll try it without it. Okay, so I just want some on the end, let it soak in. I'll put it up in the vise. We could try it with the flux or without it. This is the Stay Bright silver bearing solder. We're going to try this first. What we want to do is we want to tin the end of it. And really what would be nice if we could have a little bulbous piece. Something that will still fit within the tool hole. All right. So we get like a little BB bowl. This is regular brazing rod. And then this is Stay Silv silver brazing alloy that we can try as well. So let me set up, and I'll leave the camera where it is. I'll just aim it at what we're doing. We'll try a few things and see if we can tin this. That's the real goal. If we can tin the end and maybe even create a little bulbous thing, that would be great. Stay tuned. No, that won't work. Oh yeah. And yeah, that got tinned. Now it looks like I over tinned it. Right, I kind of broke it up a little bit with the pair of pliers. You got to get the flux off of it. And I'm going to get you in closer in a minute, but yeah, that's good. Right? It tinned it. Absolutely. And we got that little bulbous piece. Okay, so now let's just kind of lock this in here and just give a tug on it. All right. Oh, wow. That ain't coming off. All right. It just popped out of the vise. That ain't coming off, fellas. All right. So we want to get this real clean. And the lead solder, I mean, maybe we want to try the silver solder on this, the stay silver bearing. Let me see what I want to do. I want to just kind of shape that maybe a little bit, fool around with it. Probably I put a little too much on because I've never done this before, but you know, I'm really thinking that's we have definitely managed to coat the end of that. It's not an issue. It's not going to come off. Now we got to get it to fuse to the filler, to the cast. A medium file, nothing crazy. And I know you can't fully see it, but I'm just going over just to make a little barrel itself. And that'll make sure it's clean. I'll probably dip it in a little bit of flux. Put it up vertical, like I did it. Let it bulb form. Have yourself some vertical leader, like what I'm about to cut off. See? You cut that. I'm trying to hold it up within the focal length because I'm zoomed in. Now I got to trim it because it won't fit. But look, this is like what's on the end of a lot of these things. So if you just want one of those standard ends to keep it from fraying or whatever, you need one of those, something like that shape. We have that. So now I'll lock it in a vise. And I'm just going to take a little off the top until it's fit. Yeah, that might even work. Yeah, I want to take a little bit more off the top here, just like we were doing, just to give it a little bit more room in that tool. She fits right in. Yep. Now, perfect. Let me show you. I'm going to keep coming in until I can't focus. All right. Now let's stick it in a little bit of flux. I don't know if this is helping, but it's brazing flux. So, and then I'll go install the tool. I'm probably not going to show flowing it again, but I'm going to go set up, we'll flow this in, and I'll be back in a bit. And then we'll put it in the vise again and pull on the cable and see. Yeah, we'll pull on the cable. All right, we're ready. I just lost a whole rack of lights up here, right? LEDs. They're like a year old. You know, what do you want? Made in where else? Where else are they made? Let's give this a shot. Let's see if it comes out. It's not welded to. Oh, see the sparks? Oh, that broke. Okay, that's not going to work. Oh, I didn't show it, but it came right out. I got to get another drill bit. 7/16, so whatever it was I said, or the 15. I may have another one, but we can still use it. Came right out. It just used like a different drift. The first time I did it with a lead hammer. Because remember, those drill bits are really hard. So here it is. Let's see if you can see it. I know it's getting a little dark in here. Oh, yeah, it's on there, fellas. We'll clean it up. All right, but before we clean it up, let's just stick it in the vise. We'll clean this up. with the wire wheel, right? It's just kind of stuck on there. It's nothing really. Yeah, that ain't coming out. Yeah, that ain't coming out, fellas. All right, let me clean it up. I'll spend a few minutes doing the same thing I did before. And the interesting thing is I got the depth just right, but I broke the tool. So I think it broke right here on that slot I cut. So we'll have to come up with something else, but we know the measurement, and I nailed it. I just had it so that when it went in, it's just a little dirty. So, but when it went in, I just buried that notch, like I had said earlier. So it was perfect. So if you need a bigger one for brake lines, you just simply measure everything and bore it out bigger. But I nailed it. Very little cleanup. Like, not this time, it was like almost no cleanup. Right? Fits perfect. I'll get you as close as I can. It's going to be a little bit bright. I'll try to tamp it down in post. You know, tweak it. But comes right out. Not as pretty as the last one because I didn't have to spend as much time cleaning it. So it didn't get as pretty. But I didn't have to spend as much time cleaning it. Like, I didn't have to adjust it. I nailed it. So I think it's practice. Yeah, the thing is, you know, it's like you brighten up everything, you put lights on, and then you have something white, and it freaks it out. But that's beautiful. Yeah, that ain't going nowhere. I pulled on that thing. All right, we'll be back in a bit. All right, final thoughts. I will set it up tomorrow. And of course, if you don't hear from me, everything worked out. But time will tell. I'll have this machine around for a little bit longer. You know, the mini bike project for a little bit. But I've been pulling on it. As a cheese that ought. Listen, fellas. Key points here is this takes time. It's a development process. As far as the video that I originally saw, he used some lead from lead weights, like fishing weights. There was no stopper on the bottom. By the way, I've seen people try to cast this in wood. That's like a one-time thing. There was a lot of hand massaging. I didn't want to go that route. So this is a cast solder. And the key takeaway here is tinning the material, the cable, whether it's regular steel or stainless steel. You got to find a way to get that mechanical bond, true mechanical bond. And of course, if you're able to tin something, then you've got the mechanical bond of the tin to the substrate, in this case, the cable, and then you can cast over it, which is what we did. So you could put a crimp barrel of some kind on there if you have a forming tool. Now, if you want to make a forming tool, well, you can use a press, but you need to make a forming tool. Soldering it upwards, having it a little bit sticking up, just leave enough. You don't want, this way you'll provide some support to the cable. You won't overheat the cable in a place that you don't want it overheated. So consider that. It'll wick away some of that heat and it'll protect the cable. The key factor here is that you can't use braze because you will wind up you could get the braze stuck to the stainless steel bolt. So we have to stay in a softer metal, a lower temperature. It does take a while to make one of these videos, and they are a little bit long, but this is sort of a debunk. So I'd say for the videos that I saw, people that were doing this, I'd say it's been debunked. You can't really do that. My friend Arthur had mentioned it to me because he saw the live show when I put a little flicker of this, some shorts of this up on the live at the end. He says he's tried a bunch of different things that might work for a little while. And you know, he's a damn good mechanic as well. And I don't think it ever really worked for him. It would fall out. It would slide out. The initial one that I did, because I curled the little wire cable ends, got them to curl out a little bit. I think that got better traction, but that didn't look good. I wanted to take the tool a bit further. I think the tool itself, the only thing it needs is a little chamfer on the top. Seems like a lot to do, but if you need to do a custom cable, in some cases you maybe can't get one, or it may be out of stock, or it may be something for some old machine that you're just not going to find it, or it's just too damn expensive. Either way, it's a skill set and it's experience level, and of course, it's a debunk. What I saw guys doing, that's not going to work. If you don't at least get this far, And if you haven't gotten this far in the video, I don't know what to tell you. That happens a lot with people. They just don't watch the whole thing. They skip over stuff that's really important. All right, let's finish this up. All right, let me get you out of here on this. Working good, been testing it. But I got one more idea, and this is important. I just wanted to show you this part. All right, fellas, I got one last suggestion and comment, right? Now, I cleaned this thing up, and I put a little chamfer right there on that hole. Just a little bit. Cleaned it all up. Not a problem, right? The silver solder got stuck to it a little bit, but it was just stuck. It's not bonded. I like the silver solder. That is a little bit harder. Now, my comment. Now, I mentioned earlier that my friend Arthur had said, well, maybe it'll work for you. Maybe it'll hold for a little while, right? I know he's a great mechanic, really good, very smart guy. And he makes that comment from experience, right? And from observational experience as well. Now, I was thinking about that last night, and I'm like, the fellow in the original video, he made a similar comment. And, maybe it'll last for a little while, maybe to get you by. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember thinking now, I'm like, whoa, time out. What do you mean? Look, this is either debunked or not, okay? I need this to work. Like, why am I going to waste my time? So I'm trying to debunk it, but I'm also trying to get this thing to effing work because I need this thing. All right. And you can't be driving down the road, especially if I want to try to upscale this and really get it to work for a brake cable type thing. And I don't know if you can see, but the hole in there is a little bit bigger, right? So as you can see, you got a lot more meat to work with. It's also a bigger cable for a brake lever. And imagine driving down the road and this pulls off and you need your brakes because you're like panic stop. Or you're just, really aggressive. Same thing with the throttle for a mini bike or even a motorcycle. You're going to be like excited and like, no, how's that again, Arch? No, fellas. And when I've been trying it and I've been kind of wrenching the throttle and fooling around with it and just trying to imagine, sitting on this thing, having a blast, pulling back. You might have the body weight. So it seems like it's working pretty good. And one of the comments I have is, here's another thing you can try. And this will work really good on like a brake lever. Okay. So on a brake lever, when I show splaying the end out and I mentioned curling around, right, the cable a little bit, you've got a lot more room on a brake lever to do that, but the cable is going to be bigger. On a throttle, you may not have as much room to do that. So I was thinking an L or a T or a Y. Now, I don't know whether it would be better to tin it, bend it and then tin it, or tin it and then bend it. Get the blurb on there, a little ball. You could stick it down and into the tool. You could try that. However, this is the drift or the early drift that things got stuck on, and then I notched this and I broke it when I slammed on it with too heavy of a hammer. But when you go to push it out, or if you're trying to create a proper stop, you're not going to get that proper stop. So my recommendation is to put it as an L upwards, right? Get that cable in there, put the clamp on, hold the cable, properly in place, make sure it's not going to move on you. Do your solder cast, and then you're just going to trim off the extra sticking up anyway. And if you can, you may be able to pull a small T down on one end and then the larger T on the upper end, because you can bend these cables, right? You can pull them out of their spiral and take some ends and pull it down. Just a thought, rather than just relying on the ball. Now, a ball end, creating a ball end, there's going to be a lot more room on the brake cable for a ball. Now, I didn't try this, but this is just thinking, and I think fooling around like this, if you can develop this, what are your thoughts on it? Because I think those kinds of things will really help. The very first try I did, remember I was, kind of pulling over the ends and creating like little curly cues, and it didn't really want to come apart. It was, even that first crappy try was stronger than that pretty barrel that I made, which all I did was just splay it. So just splaying it without tinning, that doesn't work. Adding more curlicues and more engagement to get stuck in that lug, that definitely helped a lot. And then lastly, the tinning, because the tinning is creating more of that bond, right? That mechanical bond. It's not a deeper bond like a weld would be, because you're melting material and you're creating a fusion of, you're melting it. You're creating a fusion, right? The molecules are coming together and they're becoming one. Tinning is laying, it's a different process. I don't want to get into it, but you're basically coating the outside edge and you're getting a molecular bond, but it's on a different level. It's more like a glue than a weld. So that worked really well. And then the tin and solder, or in the case of when I try the silver solder, which is a little bit harder than tin and lead, that's going to bond very nicely to the bronze, right? The brass bronze alloy from what that process. Because, processes of welding, it's not steel welding, it's brazing. And I think that process allows the flux that's involved and everything allows for a good, solid mechanical type gription. And then from there, we get the solder. So those are my last thoughts. I think it's working. Time will tell. We're going to be out with the bike. You're not going to see the results of that in this video. But as the video progresses, which this is part of a larger series of videos of the mini bike project. So we're not done with the mini bike project yet. And we're going to be fooling around with it. And then it goes to Mikey, and then he's going to have it for a while. And I eventually will get input on this and maybe even possibly ways of improving it. Because I think this is something that may be very useful apart from, clamping it and doing it a different way in some type of a clamping arrangement where you're really stamping it together in some kind of a press. It could be a hand press or modified hydraulic or who knows. Those are possibilities too. I just wanted to leave you with this, and I figured I'd get you out of here on these thoughts. And I've been thinking about that for years. And as I mentioned, I saw this on YouTube years ago, and I thought, well, that's not a bad idea. I've seen a number of ways of doing it. There are other ways of doing it. This is just the way that I decided to give it a shot with the stuff that I have around. So hopefully this was helpful. Come on back, check out this and some of my other videos. Go to my homepage, you'll see them in folders. And thanks for stopping in for this episode of Archer's Garage. I'll see you guys on the next one.